What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Market Watch Wednesday here on the InkCast. And we're going to be doing it a little different this time around. We're going to be looking at the cards that are going up, the cards that are going down, and the best sellers. All right, guys, so the first one we're looking at is Diablo. Yes, Diablo is going back up. Diablo is a $35 card, and this is an 11% gain for the week over the last 7 days. So yes, this card is coming back. If you didn't get him when he was like $30 or under $30 the other day, you might have missed out. Now, we've said this a lot here on the InkCast. This is the $40 card of the set. Yeah, some of these cards are losing a little bit of value, so maybe $40 isn't the best bar mark anymore, but this is definitely an over $30 card easy. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes back up to around $40 because, yeah, Bucky was a problem, but this is the card that really made that deck work and made that deck so good. Next up, yeah, his friend Diablo is going up, and that means Robin Hood is going up as well. People are realizing this card is still good. Now, this card is a $38 card, so $38.32, and that is also up by 11% over the last 7 days. So he's still continuing to rise. And this has a lot to do with what we've already seen being spoiled in Shimmering Skies. There's a lot of Robin Hoods, and considering this one has Shift, it's just a great card to pair with all the other Robin Hoods that we're getting. So it wouldn't surprise me if this card goes up to 40, a couple more dollars, just like it was before. And it really could continue to rise if we see Robin Hood in general just being a great card in the new meta as we get into Shimmering Skies. All right, so the next one, yeah, she may not be as expensive as the last two we looked at, but she is at the $9.69 mark. So she's getting close to $10 already. She's gone up, 3-4% for the week. That's not huge, but at the same time, when we're looking at a lot of these cards, there's not a lot that have been moving. So to see a card like this continue to move means that there may be something with this deck. And what I'm talking about is that Amber Emerald Under the Sea deck that some people were trying out towards the end of this set. And we got some new cards coming out that may increase it, may help it a little bit. So keep your eye out on this card because it is rising. It's been rising and it may continue to go up. Maybe, I don't know, $12, something like that. Would be where I put it, but who knows? It may be way better than I'm expecting, and it may just continue to rise if it becomes one of the dominant decks in the next format. Another card that's right there with Kida. Yeah, not expensive at all, but it is 42 cents, and it is the Muses. Yeah, the Muses really are one of those cards that work well with Kida and Under the Sea, but also with some of this green coming out, I could see the Muses really being a card that actually helps some of these decks just to get over that little bit of the finish line. So you look at things like the new mirror that was spoiled and making people discard their hand down to 3. Having this card be able to bounce stuff continually based on your song playing, I could see this card go up a little bit more, but keep in mind, it's not legendary or anything like that. So its ceiling is maybe $1 at most, maybe a little bit more. If it gets played everywhere as a 4 of, but right now it does have a rise. It is going up. I mean, 35% is a pretty big number, right? If you're looking at, stock market type stuff, and the percentages on the cards, but it still is kind of cheaper, but I did want to throw it in because it is a very big gain over the last 7 days on this card. And speaking of Steel Song, we have the Queen. Yes, the big Queen that shifts for 2. She is coming down and she is $1.28 right now. So this is a almost 40% rise over the last 7 days. This is an incredible jump, which is directly linked to Steel Song in general making its rise. Now, keep in mind, this card does have a very low cap on it because of the fact that she's in the starter decks and you can get her pretty easy. But over time, if we look into the future, if she continues to be one of the big powerhouses in these sets, there is a chance that she will continue to go up over time just because shifting a 5-drop on turn 2 is insane. Being able to sing a lot of these big 5-cost songs is always going to be a great card to have. All right, and one of the cards I wanted to point out that's kind of moving around, I believe because of speculation. We're getting a lot more cards with the same name, so different versions of cards. And so Hades is one of those cards where if you can get him to work, I think he's going to be really solid and powerful. This is the green Hades that can essentially kind of shift a card. Essentially, you remove the card that's on the field and replace it with one with the same name. And yeah, it's a $2.52, but it is up 14% for the week and continuing to rise. So keep your eye there. Again, I think it's speculation, but it being a legendary does make it, one of those cards that if it ends up in a lot of decks, the price may continue to go up. All right, another one of those cards is kind of speculative, but I do think he's a pretty good card, is Jim Hawkins. We saw a lot of these Ruby location decks, whether that's Ruby Amber, Ruby Steel, popping up in the last couple weeks. And with the new spoilers coming out, there's a lot of cards that care about locations, a lot of the racers and things like that when they're moving to and from the different locations, give you lore or do damage or different things like that. And I think that this could lead to Jim being a card that maybe sees some type of play. Will it be tier 1 meta? I don't think so, but maybe like 1.5, maybe tier 2. It'll definitely be a fun deck because being able to put him out and put a very big location, whether that's castle or maybe one of these new locations, could be pretty good. And so this card is $8.55 right now. It is up 12% for the week. So he is starting to kind of creep up there. He is, a legendary. So if we get some really good locations, or if somebody finds a deck that he works well with, he does have the potential of moving up. But again, I think right now he's just a fun card, and people are definitely going to experiment with those, Ruby Steel location type decks. And he's always going to kind of be on the fringe of playable because of that. All right, so this one surprised me a little bit. Still in set 1, we're talking about A Whole New World, and A Whole New World, yeah, it's starting to rise back up. It's nowhere near where its peak was of set 1 being used everywhere. But it is starting to be used a little bit more. And I do foresee this being used even more in the new set because of some of the cards and interactions that we have with reviving stuff from your discard to, controlling hand size. So, some kind of mill deck with steel, emerald, or something like that, having a mirror down, and then doing this. And then your opponent pretty much has to play their hand, or they have to discard the 7 you gave them anyway, down to 3. It's going to be a really powerful, meta when we get there. And so this is one of those cards that's starting to go back up. It's an $11 card, but it has gone up 3% over the last 7 days. And I do foresee this to kind of continue to rise if you don't have play sets. So, it is one of those cards that some people like playing, some people don't like playing, but I do foresee this being a card in the next meta as we get into set 5. So before we jump into the going down cards, there's a few I want to look at specifically. I do want to point out and make sure you understand the reason why this is so important. It's great that cards go up, but when cards go down, it makes the EV on packs really, really terrible. And it makes you maybe not want to open packs. So this is something to be very aware of. And what I'm showing on the screen right now is just from some of the sets, the cards that are above $3, meaning these are the cards that can maybe break you even when you open up a pack. When you look at Ursula's Return into the Inklands, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of cards there that can do that. So whenever a card goes down, so all that red you're seeing on the screen, it's not a great thing because they will eventually be under that $3 mark, potentially if they keep going down. And then opening a pack is 100% not worth it unless you hit one of these few cards or the enchanted. Now, the good thing about that is there are some cards on these lists that are not legendaries. There are some that are rare. So you look at Flynn or Sisu in Ursula's Return. You've got things like, Mim Fox back in Floodborn and some other sets like that that can make up for those EVs. But we're going to be looking specifically at some of these cards that are going down to be aware of whether you have them and you need to kind of think about offloading them, or from the good side of, hey, they're down and maybe you want to pick some of these up to finish collections or use in future decks. All right, so starting us off with the going down as we look into these specific cards, we have Beast. Now, Beast friends, yeah, Diablo and Robin Hood, we saw a little bit earlier in the video, they're going up. I'm not really sure why Beast isn't going up yet. But it is one of those things where he will go back up at some point because this card is just value. Yes, Medusa can deal with them, but just like Robin Hood, Medusa can deal with Robin Hood. And Beast is just one of those cards where if he's not dealt with, he's so much advantage. Being able to draw an extra card every turn and still having the ability to potentially tap for 2 lore whenever you've decided that, hey, I've got enough cards or I don't really care. I've got a second Beast, whatever it is. Yeah, he's really good. So right now he is $43, almost $44. And he has been going down and continuing to go down 3 or 4% over the last 7 days. So he isn't at his all-time low or where he dropped about a week ago, but he is still continuing to kind of drop. And I don't foresee that being too much longer. So as we get into set 5, as people finally figure out Bucky is fine being changed or anything like that, people will come back to this card in their steel decks. And so, yeah, keep an eye on it because this card is going to probably go back up over some time. But as a $40 card, he's still a great card for the set, still a great card to pick up. So just look at him, keep an eye on him if you don't have him, because he will most likely go up pretty soon. All right, so next up is Sisu. Yeah, the middle Sisu, the one that works with Flynn that everybody's running. She was a top seller for the last couple of weeks, which is what drove her price up. And I don't know, right now she's going down. It is something to be aware of. She was, a $5 plus card. I don't think she's going to go too much higher than this. I think she's around where she's at. So she's at $4.50 right now. Yeah, that is down 20% over the last 7 days. And I foresee that kind of being her mark. Maybe she goes down a little bit more. We're seeing a lot of people get away from that Flynn Sisu package, but it's still a great package. It's a 2-card card advantage type, interaction. But right now with so much removal hanging around, so much of the steel where Flynn just comes down and gets removed, it's kind of a hit or miss. Again, you are removing a removal spell in their hand by playing Flynn. So maybe that's a great thing depending on how your deck's built. But just keep in mind this card, yeah, $5 is probably its high end because of being a rare, the mass printing of the set and things like that. But, right now at $4.50, if you're planning on playing those decks, it's a fine pickup. It has come down, but I do kind of see this going down a little bit further, maybe closer to the $4 mark at some point. And who knows, it could go a little bit lower, but right now it's being used in a lot of decks, which is keeping the value around that $4.50 mark. So anywhere, $4 to $5, that's where we see this card. And we'll just have to see over the next couple of weeks if it continues to go down or if it stabilizes or rebounds just a little bit. All right, so the next card specifically, just like we saw with Sisu, that drove its price up is the Queen's Castle. Now, the Queen's Castle is at $12 right now. It's down 11% for the week. This is one of those cards where, because of the rise of red purple, everybody playing the deck, it being everywhere and being the answer to everything, it drove this card's price up. I do believe this card is about a $10 card, so it's not far off from probably where it's going to settle at some point. It's just being used in every deck. That's the thing that's keeping the price up of this card. It's a 4 of in most decks. Typically in the past, we saw it as more of a 3 of in decks, and red purple was just a portion of the meta. Whereas right now, especially with set championships, it's like 50 to 60% of those set championships because it's cheaper than the Bucky decks. A lot of people don't want to invest in the Bucky decks with potentially a lot of those cards being dead cards going into set 5. But yeah, it's going to be one of those great cards that are always going to be used in purple decks, whether that's a 2 of, a 3 of, or a 4 of. So it will retain some value, but I do foresee this kind of settling closer to the $10 mark eventually. It may take a few weeks for that to happen, maybe a month or two for that to happen. So just keep your eye on it. Right now, it is down for the week, but it always has the chance to rebound just a little bit, depending on what we see when we hit set 5 in a couple weeks. But once we get to those DLCs, we'll see if that continues to drive the prices for some of these cards. Another card that's, feeling the exact same issue is Maui. So Maui's one of those cards that was used 4 ofs in so many decks. And at this point, he's starting to go down a little bit. Again, people thinking about the new color combos that are coming with Shimmering Skies. A lot of the copies that were picked up for set championships, for the DLCs, because red purple was the go-to color, it drove his price up. And right now he's slightly under $14. So 13, 80, 13.90 currently, but he is down about 9% over the last 7 days. So keep in mind, he is going down a little bit. I don't really see him dropping too hard. Going to continue to be a $10 card like we mentioned on previous episodes and things like that. But definitely a card to keep your eye on, because as we continue down, we really haven't seen anything that, is the same as Maui. Now we are getting locations with a little bit more health that are making it, not be as good as far as one-shotting. So we're seeing like Hercules or some of these other cards pop into some of those slots. But even there, you still have like a 3 Maui, 1 Hercules, or 3 Maui, 2 Hercules split. So still a great card, but definitely one of those that, could come down another $1 or so over the next few weeks. But he will be a staple, moving forward as one of those great removal spells when it comes to Ruby decks. All right, so the last card I want to look at when it comes to going down is Stitch Rockstar. Now, Stitch Rockstar is one of those cards that was a powerhouse when we started Lorcana, and over time, he kind of fell off. So there was a resurgence of Stitch when we had the Prize Land combo, which is still a thing that you can probably sneak out against some people. But because that has also quickly died away, Stitch Rockstar has gone down, down, down in value. And he has one more reason why he's gone down even more, and that's because of Gateway. So if you guys don't know what Gateway is, we will have a video hopefully coming up next week of us playing a Gateway. And it is the new set that Ravensburger just released for Lorcana. It's specifically for new players. So if you're looking for value in that, don't. There's maybe $18 worth of cards in that, and that is current value, meaning most of these are going to continue to go down because of the reprints. I expect Gateway to be on the shelves for a long time to come. If you didn't know, it's back in the board games. When you look at places like Target and Walmart, it's not up with the cards. And because it's in the board games, it makes me feel like this is something that we may get new future versions of, as well as the fact that this will be stocked at all these different places. So because of that, cards like Rockstar that are reprinted in the set are going to continue to lose value. So keep that in mind when you think of Rockstar. But as of now, he's $1.80. And the reason he's on the list is, well, he's lost 35% of the value over the last 7 days. So he's going to continue to drop. Just be aware, if you love Stitch and things like that, probably in a week or two, you can probably pick this up for probably $1 if I had to guess, as it continues to go down. So we'll see what happens with all those cards that were reprinted in the future, as well as some of these cards that maybe just aren't being used. All right, so with that being said, we're jumping into the best sellers. And again, big shout out to Card Market for helping us with all these lists that you can find on their website. But essentially, we're looking at the top 10 best sellers in the European market. Now, again, a lot of this is going to correlate to the same cards over in the US market, but I do want to point that out that this is specifically in the European market, which is why you're seeing the prices down there in euros, and they may not look the same as what we see in the US. But those 3 cards, yeah, they're different again this week, and it's really great to see that these are moving around. There was a period there for multiple weeks where all we saw was Flynn and Sisu, and yes, Flynn is still snuck himself into this list and stayed around, but we've got some other ones, which is Baloo and the Muses. Now, we've already talked about the Muses a little bit earlier, but Baloo is starting to show up in a lot of these aggro decks. So some people are trying out the Amber Amethyst aggro decks, or Amber, whatever color steel aggro decks, and he is being a powerhouse within them. Now, going into the top 10, you've got a couple other cards there of note. You've got Prince John, the greediest of all. Again, we've got that mirror. I've talked about the mirror earlier in the video, but that mirror is going to be insane. I don't think you necessarily need Prince John to make the mirror cheaper, but I do see, having the mirror out, using a whole new world with Prince John, then discarding 4 cards, which one with Prince John, you're already drawing off of a whole new world, but also when they discard down to 3, it's more draws. So I can really see this card coming back in value. Will he be a crazy expensive card? Probably not, but he is going to be a pretty good card, and you probably will see him, especially in the first few weeks of the set, people experimenting with him. And then we may see him get cut down to like 2 of in a deck or something like that, because you'll find out like his draw may not be as needed as it potentially was in the past. So all in all, those are the best sellers. List is pretty quick, but let me know, what cards are you guys picking up? What cards are we missing? What cards have we not thought about when we get into Shimmering Skies? Leave a comment down below. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and appreciate all you guys. We're closing in on 500 subs, so appreciate you guys. And at some point, if we can get to 1,000, we will be giving away a trove to a lucky viewer. So until next time, guys, y'all take it easy.